Many people in the West who have studied or learned about Eastern philosophy are familiar with the concept of Maya, the cosmic illusion. The idea is that there is one undivided, infinite reality, and that somehow this one reality has become or seems to have become many. So Eastern philosophies have tried to explain that. The doctrine of Maya or Mayavada explains it as a misperception. And the classic example of the misperception is seeing a rope on the road at dusk and mistaking it for a snake, feeling terrified there's a snake in the road. Misperception, the rope was never a snake, will never be a snake, except in your imagination. And that is the way Mayavada explains how one thing gets misperceived as another. Shankaracharya, who formulated the doctrine of Maya or Mayavada and popularized it, said that this Maya is neither real nor unreal. You can't say that this illusory snake is entirely unreal because it's a real experience in the sense that real fear gets generated from the misperception. But you can't say that it's real entirely either, because upon investigation, the snake is discovered to be a rope. It's always a rope. And once the illusion is broken, it never returns, theoretically. So Shankaracharya said this method, or this way that the snake is perceived as a rope, is ultimately anirvachaniya, inexpressible, which in philosophical terms is rather unsatisfying. It doesn't really tell us how it happened. Now, the Tantras took a different approach to this issue. Yes, the Tantras also agree that the ultimate reality is one undivided consciousness, which Shankara called Brahman. The Tantras tend to call Shiva, or Shiva Shakti. In any case, one undivided consciousness. But the Tantras would say, no, the world is real enough. There's no point in calling it unreal in any sense. It just isn't the whole story, that there's more to the world than what we normally perceive. And so they explain how the one becomes many through the doctrine of Shakti, or energy, power. And the idea is that consciousness, in its very nature, has the ability to morph itself into a variety of forms. Now, we experience this very directly in our own consciousness, for instance, when we dream or daydream, or if you practice any kind of inward meditation, you quickly become aware of how the mind is constantly generating images. And what is the substance of those images? It's the very consciousness that is the substance of the world. Now you might say, well, it's all well and good to talk about dream images, but what about the images in the external world? And here's where we have to take a trip through the looking glass a bit, where the Tantras would say, what do you mean external? External in what sense? And I think we normally mean, when we talk about external world, external to our physical body, the world that we perceive with our five senses, mind, that seems quite separate from us. And both Vedanta and Tantra would say, well, look at the dream state. Now, upon waking, you know that the dream state happens all in your head, as it were. There was no place else for it to happen. But while you are actually in the dream state, you have a dream body. That body may or may not resemble your body in the waking state. Furthermore, the normal rules of the waking state no longer apply. You can fly, and other fantastic things can happen. And yet all of that seems quite normal in the dream state. It seems quite real as long as you stay within the state. They would say, well, the waking state is not unlike that, in that while you're in the waking state, the world seems very real, it seems separate from you, and there doesn't seem any point in questioning that necessarily. So, what do you mean to question the concept of an outer world or inner versus inner world? So, the fact is, what we know or think we know of the outer world is also this product of consciousness, that is, the awareness that shines, as it were, through our eyes and through our various senses that seems to bring us information from outside ourselves. All happens within our own minds. Anybody who's taken a psychedelic drug knows how, when the mind is affected, the world gets affected. So they're not separate, entirely separate. There is a connection between how we perceive the world and the world that we experience. They are intimately connected. So this philosophy would state that just as in the dream state, what seems external to the dreamer is actually within the dreamer, that in the waking state, what seems external to the waking person is also within the person, within the mind of the person, in some sense, or within a mind, not necessarily the individual mind, but within a larger mind, the universal mind, of which the individual mind is one aspect. So the basic idea is consciousness has the power, the Shakti, to manifest itself, to morph itself into various forms, and then we experience those forms as if they're separate from one another, and that explains the world. Now, so what? What is the practical implication of the philosophies of Maya versus Shakti? The Mayavadis, by mistrusting the world, by saying it is an illusion, advocate renunciation of the world as a primary spiritual stance. That is, if the world has nothing of truth in it, then it ought to be rejected. And so the Mayavadi wants to go to the cave or to the forest and meditate without distractions of Maya. The Shaktivadi, however, says, no, the world is itself the divine consciousness, and that the way to understand that is through engaging it intelligently. And the way that Tantra teaches to engage it intelligently is to train the mind and the senses to perceive the one essence within the multiplicity. And that is the point of all tantric ritual and training. And that will lead to the experience of the one essence, the one consciousness that underlies all things.